Dear students, I'll be taking up Walt Whitman with you today. Walt Whitman is one of America's most influential 19th century poets. His verse collection, Leaves of Grass, is regarded as a landmark in American literature. A poet, he is often named as the father of free verse. He mixed transcendentalism and realism in his writing. Democracy and American experience were amongst his favorite topics. Uh, we need not go into the details of Walt Whitman's life history, but we will directly take up his collection of poems, Leaves of Grass. Leaves of Grass is a poetic collection by American poet Walt Whitman, and many of its poems are celebrated poems. One is Song of Myself, Crossing Brooklyn Ferry, Out of Cradle, Endlessly Rocking. Leaves of Grass, as the title runs. Why? The title is meant to be a kind of a pun. The term grass, it was often used in the poet's days to denote the works of minor literature. And Whitman uses the word leaves to describe the pages of his book. Thus, Whitman is saying that his book is a collection of minor literature. He is not claiming to be a great poet, but he celebrates his commonality. He celebrates that he is an ordinary common man. And the grass itself becomes in the poem a flag, a kind of expression of poet's disposition, his nature, and it, as the poem unwinds itself, the Song of Myself, the grass takes up different meanings. We'll come to it after we have read a few units. Song of Myself, Unit 1 is there in your syllabus, and Unit 1 introduces the theme of the poem. In fact, Song of Myself is a long poem divided into units of varying lengths. Some are very short and some are very long, and they have different symbols, they have different messages, they have different themes, but there is definitely one connecting, underlying unity in the themes. Song of Myself is also a very sprawling combination of biography, a sermon, and of course the poetic meditation. Whitman uses different symbols and sly commentary to embark on various important issues which he takes up in the very first unit, Song of Myself. I'll read a few lines. I celebrate myself and sing myself. The very first line, it introduces what the intention of the poet. He says, I celebrate myself. See the joy, the pleasure he is actually exhibiting over being a human being, probably being what he is, right? He says, I celebrate myself and sing myself. And what I assume you shall, singing of myself. You sing about some famous personality or some hero or some. Here, the hero is I. The hero is the poet, right? Hero is that common man who is at the base of the structure of what we call as society. And he is inviting the reader to be one with him in whatever his suppositions are. He says, what I assume, you shall assume. And what is the connection between the speaker and the reader? He says, every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. And that explains the theme of the poem, that what I am, you are. What you are, I am. That is, we have a common bond. This common bond is the bond of humanity. And then he says, I lean and loaf at my ease, observing a spear of summer grass. And then he says, my tongue, every atom of my blood formed from this soil and this earth. In a way, he's celebrating his existence. He's celebrating the land where he has taken birth. And he says, born of the parents and they born of their parents. The life itself is something to be celebrated. Born here of parents the same and their parents the same. In a way, what he's saying is there is no difference in one human being and the other. My parents or their parents, they have something in common, and probably that is humanity. Human life itself is common. And then he says, I, now 37 years old, in perfect health, begin, taking pride in his being his own self. He wants to sing about life and not to cease till death. And he recognizes that there are creeds, there are schools which play a very important role in a man's life. But while he is singing, while he is celebrating himself, he'll keep those schools, those creeds at a distance and in abeyance, and he will what will help him in keeping them at a distance? Nature, his closeness to nature. And while he is almost flaunting his closeness to nature, celebrating his closeness to nature, he takes it in a very natural way that the nature is his guide. The nature is something that will help him in finding uh, that that distance and finding that unity, finding that power to celebrate himself. So this sets the tone and theme of the Song of Myself, right? So in this 52 part long poem, Whitman celebrates the human body and its ability to become one with self and with nature. So this is the how the tone is set, the theme. It will be unfolding itself as we go on with the poem. But one thing is clear, that the poet has divided his identity into three components. First is I, second is me and myself, and the third one is soul. Right? Then secondly, he talks about America, the land. This America is not just a place for Whitman. It is an ideal to work for. And in the poem itself and in other poems which figure in this collection of poetry, Leaves of Grass, the poet celebrates the diversity of his nation. America is a place for all people who are equal, doing all jobs which are important, and they feel for each other, they are passionate, their love for the neighborly love for each other is very much there. There is a kind of friendship, a universal brotherhood is there. And of course, the poem is also an attempt to remind all his fellow Americans of the common bonds that they share. And there is one more theme that the poem takes up, and that is spirituality. Whitman thinks both the body as well as the soul are important. They are immortal because they are connected to the larger pattern of the nature. And therefore, the Song of Myself is supposed to be a prophetic statement. We come now to the section 6 of the poem. In the section 6, the poet begins again with a question. I said again because somehow, somewhere, the poem is all an answer to a question, a spiritual question. The section 6 starts with a question. A child said, "What is the grass?" Fetching it to me with full hands. The question of the child, "What is the grass?" comprises the theme of the poem. The grass itself has a very deep meaning for the poet. It is a common thing which grows anywhere, and it grows in a large number. It doesn't have any special appearance. It doesn't have anything special about it, but it grows. And when the child wants the answer, what is the grass? This child is the voice of the conscience, voice of probably his own, his own voice, inner voice is the grass. And the poet here, tries to almost thwart the question. How can I answer the question? And in an attempt to answer the question, he tries to, almost playfully flip the question. He says, how could I answer the question? How could I answer the child? I do not know whether it is what it is, more than he. Maybe it is the flag of my disposition, out of hopeful green stuff woven. Maybe it is the handkerchief of the Lord. Maybe it is a scented gift, or the remembrance designedly dropped. Or maybe, when it is a handkerchief, it means it is somebody's belonging, but it has been deliberately thrown down. See the connection with the God, as if it is a gift of the God to the mankind. A handkerchief thrown deliberately with a signature of the owner somewhere in the corner, not visible, but it is there. And then see the equality that the grass brings. It means sprouting alike in broad zones. Wherever it is, it is alike. It doesn't differ. What it is here, it will be the same there. And, probably, those wherever he named some names, Kentucky, Tukey, Congressman, Cuff, all men, all places, they receive it the same. So it is the same thing. It bears a hallmark of equality, right? It doesn't matter where it is the same. It doesn't matter whom it belongs, it is the same. Tenderly, then he says, maybe it has come out of the graves. So this grass is almost equating the life to the death, because the dead ones, when he says the grass is coming out of the graves, out of the breasts of the young men, or maybe if I had known that, I would have loved them, maybe from the mother's laps, or the dark from the deep depth of the graves, it is coming out. So it is almost equated to the voice of the dead. Even those are not silent, their voices are not silenced. The grass brings a hope for them that their voice is going to be heard. So I perceive them. He says, I perceive after all so many uttering tongues. The grass is the voice of the dead. Because of its timelessness, it equates the past and the present, the dead and the living. And he says, I wish I could translate the hints about the young men. And the grass has, it hides in it a number of stories, a number of untold tales. And the grass, in fact, is an indication that there really is no death. There is no death. And the moment, if ever there was, it led forward life. It does not wait at the end to arrest it. Once upon a time, it was living. But then it has not waited to put an end to the life. It has gone on and on. All goes onward and outward. Nothing collapses. The grass becomes almost a symbol of the continuity of life. It is an indication, and a very good indication on that too, that nothing ever ceases to be. Humanity is a kind of chain. The voices of the past are never dead. They continue. They have their weightage. They have their impact even in the present. And to die is different from what anyone supposed, the luckier. And in this one section, in answering to the question, what is a grass, the poet is pondering on the deeper questions of life and death as well. To die is not the end. To die is to be luckier. To die is to understand that the voices are still, voices of the past will be carried on in the future. The present is just a link of the past and the future. And the term grass entails everything. All that idea is involved in it. So the grass becomes a symbol greater than only a life or a voice or a handkerchief. The poet is almost invading the question. He is answering it more poignantly. He is answering it all the more deeply. And we'll be continuing with more of the poet's concept on the life and his philosophy in the further sections. That's all for today. Thank you so much.